Today, Year 1, we're going to learn how to make a polyblock print just like this using our fish design. And to do this, we will need the template that I sent to you on your Firefly task. You only need one template and you need to cut around the edge of it. Okay, so you need a template. You also need a polystyrene plate, okay? And you need a very sharp pencil. And later on, you will need blue paint and a paintbrush. Okay, so let's get going. Now, the first thing we need to do is we need to take a paper plate and we need to cut around the edge of the plate. We need to get rid of the bit around the edge. So I'm going to pick up my plate and I'm just going to go up to the part of the plate where it's flat and cut around in a circle shape, following the shape of the circle on the plate. Because we can only print with the foam plate if the plate is flat. Now there we are. There is the template I'm going to use for my printing. Then I'm going to take my fish that I've cut out and put it on top of the polystyrene. And you need a very sharp pencil to do this, because what you're going to do is you're going to hold the fish nice and securely and you're going to draw around the fish into the foam. But Year 1, you're not drawing on top of the polystyrene, you're digging down into it. And if I move my fish away, you can see that my pencil goes inside the plate to make a groove. I haven't just drawn on top like that, I've dug a groove into the plate. And that's what you need to make sure you do when you're drawing around the fish. If you don't dig into the plate and pierce the plate, your fish won't print. Okay, so you need to dig into that plate. Okay, nice and firmly. Keep the fish nice and still. Move your hands around so that you can get to every edge. So I've got the outline of my fish and I've dug into the polystyrene. Now I want to add some detail. So I'm going to draw the line for the gills and I'm still digging right into the plate. I'm going to draw the eye of the fish. Now when you're digging into the plate, you need to move quite slowly, because sometimes the polystyrene will move in a way that you don't want it to. So you need to dig quite slowly. Now I'm going to add my gills. I'm going to do, my scales to the fish. Nice big scales all over the body of the fish. And then I'm going to add some lines on my fish. And remember, very important, dig into the polystyrene. I'm going to add a few more lines on the fish's face for his gills. And then let me add some fins. One fin down here, I'm going to add lines on the fin. And one at the front. Digging in all of the time. This will take you a little bit of time, Year 1, but take your time. If you don't take your time, you might rip the foam on the plate. Okay, now I've got my fish shape I'm happy with, and now I might just add some sea details. Make some waves so it looks like the fish is in the water. Okay, so that's my design I'm going to use. Oh, I'm going to give the fish a mouth as well. That's my design I'm going to use for my print. What I want you to double check though, before we start to add paint, is I want you to go back around every single line and check that you have dug nice and deep into the foam so that you get a clear print when you add the paint. If you don't, you'll be sorely disappointed because your print won't come out. So make sure you've dug right into the foam, okay? Go over every single line to make sure it really stands out. Okay, there we go, year one. For the next stage, year one, you need to have your blue paint, your paintbrush, your polystyrene template, and you need paper. Now, I suggest today that you use just loose paper rather than your sketchbook. And what you can do is you can later on stick your prints into your sketchbook. So what we're going to do is we're just going to paint all over the fish block. Now you don't need to use lots of paint. If you use lots of paint, it won't work. You need to just use a thin layer of paint all over the fish. Make sure it goes all over, right over every single part of the fish. If your paint gets thick, like here, you need to spread it out so it's all even right across the poly block. Okay. Now normally when we do this in art, we use a roller, but I don't think you've probably got a roller at home, so today we're using a paintbrush. Normally you roll the ink. Okay, so I've covered every single part of the fish, and then the bits that I have pressed into the poly block with a pencil, those we won't be able to see, those will stay white. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put my paper down, turn over my poly block, lay it on the paper, and then I'm just going to use a round object to press down onto the poly block. Now, a pot of paint isn't a good idea. In fact, I'm going to get myself something else to roll on top of the poly block. Here we go. I'm going to use this container. Okay, this is better. Right across the poly block, and this helps the paint to stick to the paper. So let's see what happens. And that's my first print. Now it's always a good idea, year one, to do lots of prints. The first print is never very clear. So what you need to do is you need to paint the block again, and the more you paint, the better the print will get. The first print is never very clear. It's always the way. I'm not really sure why, but I guess the paint is beginning to stick better on the next ones. So here we go, right over the print, right into the corner, so every part of the poly block is painted. There we are, and it's nice and even and not too thick. So I'm going to take my piece of paper, put it down in front of me, turn over my poly block, and then press down with a round object just to make sure that the fish comes out nice and clearly on the poly block. Okay. Let's have a look. Let's see if that has worked nicely. Yes, and can you see that the next print is much clearer than the first one I did? Okay, I suggest, year one, that you do 2, 3, or 4 prints, and I think you'll find that every time you do another print, it will get better and better. So good luck with this one. I can't wait to see your finished work.